Hi, everyone. My name's Jack. I'm a junior biological sciences major, um, and I am also an LSC study skills tutor. So in this video, I just want to go over quickly a couple topics. I have them listed on the screen. One is success in your asynchronous classes. So we'll go over some of the tips and tricks that I found work for me. Combating Zoom fatigue, something that we all need to be continuously working towards, especially now when we're getting in this late stage of Zoom, I like to call it, when we've been, doing this for almost a couple semesters now. Um, and then also kind of some general tips about preparing for clustered exams. And when I say clustered exams, I mean exams that are um, maybe back to back or a couple days apart. Okay. First, asynchronous classes. So the first thing that I think we should talk about are the traps that are associated with asynchronous classes. Um, One of those being, procrastination. How easy is it to not even start your work for the class when you don't have anything to go to? Maybe you have a homework that's due on Friday that's based on the lectures from the week, but who's stopping you from watching all those lectures or looking at all those slides on Friday right before you do the homework? Um, Another trap is just a general lack of engagement, not only with the class as a whole, but even broken down into specific lectures. Um, we have our phones here when we're sitting at our desk, when we're on Zoom. I can press escape and get rid of Zoom and check my email. There's so many ways that we can get distracted that wouldn't normally be there uh, when we're in person, when we're sitting down focused on the professor, what they're saying. So these are things that we need to consciously be aware of in order to avoid. So based on these traps, these are some tips that I found work for me. I think it's really important to highlight the work for me part of that statement. Um, Everyone's different, and what works for me may not work for you. So it's important to keep that in the back of your mind when you hear stuff like this. This is not the correct solution. This is the solution that another fellow student has found works for them. So with that being said, one tip that the LSC recommends, and I definitely recommend, is creating a study schedule and making yourself stick to it, not letting yourself slide. It takes a lot of, you know, I don't want to call it mental toughness, but just maybe mental diligence is a better word for it. Just being very diligent to when if I say that I'm going to watch my asynchronous lecture um, from 9 to 9:50 in the morning, I'm not going to sleep until 10 o'clock. I'm going to stick to it. I'm going to do that. Um, because once you start breaking down parts of your schedule and not accomplishing what you said that you were going to, it eats into the next thing. For example, if I sleep until 10 when I said I was going to watch my asynchronous lecture from 9 to 9:50, what happens to the thing that I was going to do at 10? What thing then if I'm doing my lecture from 10 to 10:50, what happens to the thing that I'm supposed to do at 11? So it's just kind of a cycle that builds upon itself, and I found from my experience just makes more stress. And things are stressful enough right now. We don't need to add more stress to that. So another thing, and this is getting at the lack of engagement that can come along with an asynchronous style class. Put your phone down. This is hard to do. Put your phone down. Turn it on silent, turn it off, whatever. During the time that you have designated for yourself to be in class. So if I say that I'm going to be in class from 9 to 9:50, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, viewing my asynchronous lectures, I'm not going to go on my phone. I'm not going to, like I mentioned earlier, check my email. I'm not going to do work for another class. I'm going to treat it as close to a lecture, like attending a lecture as possible. Creating those mental divides for me personally helps keep me engaged, helps me focus on the material. And ultimately, those two things are what allow me to learn most effectively. So another thing to note is, what is your study space like? Where are you watching the lectures? From my experience, when it's safe and when I can, I like to try to get out of my room to view my asynchronous lectures. I think, especially, like, I'm a junior now, so my freshman and most of my sophomore year, I had this really good disconnect between work, like, and relaxation. And I tried really hard to make it so my room was a place where I didn't associate work with it. And what that allowed me to do was, when I got back to my room, I could truly relax. There wasn't some sort of subconscious connection between, my room and work. But obviously with COVID, that becomes muddled. Some people can't leave their room. They don't have, they're not in Ithaca, or they don't feel comfortable going somewhere else to study. So in that case, what I have found is a good method is, make your room as professional as possible during the day. If I have to sit here and view lectures and do homework, I'm gonna make my bed. I'm gonna clean up. I'm not gonna leave trash all over the place. And this is a big one. I'm not gonna do my work laying in bed because if I'm already intruding into that, relaxation environment, I'm definitely not gonna intrude to, like, my bed is the place where I sleep. When I lay down in my bed, I don't want to think about class anymore. I just want to relax, watch an episode of on Netflix, or read a book, whatever is relaxing. But trying your best, even in this virtual environment, to create those mental divides for yourself is huge for me, really huge. All right, moving on to Zoom fatigue, how we can combat it. So the first thing to recognize is, Zoom fatigue is a real thing. And acknowledge that it's a real thing. Sometimes the hardest part, like, if you don't acknowledge that there's a problem, how are you supposed to work to improve upon it or to fix it? Another thing is, think about your old schedule. So for me personally, some activities that I used to do that I haven't done as much because of our virtual learning environment is walking to class. So walking to class for me was a great mental break. It was, 15, 20 minutes where between classes, or maybe 5 minutes between class, but like 15, 20 minutes from my apartment to campus, where I could just put on my AirPods and not think about anything. The only thing that I had to think about was walking. Yeah. And my mind could wander, and it was really refreshing for me, like a little bit of physical activity. It's something that's not replicated by, sitting in your room and going on your phone. So try to add some of those things back into your schedule. Maybe you don't have to walk to class, but you can still go for a little walk if you're like me. Or whatever it is that you found relaxing in your prior schedule that you can't access as easily in your new schedule. Sometimes we need to work a little bit harder to put those things in when they're not required of us. And at least for me, the hard part was justifying it. Like, why would I spend half an hour going for a walk when I could dedicate that half an hour to doing some of my work? And it's a valid point, it's a valid thing to bring up, but you have to remember that is half an hour of your time, is that half an hour better spent refreshing yourself so you can work more efficiently later? Or is that half an hour better spent, working through your work, but kind of it's laborious and you're not super engaged, you're not super motivated? So for me, I found that taking those walking breaks, getting out of my apartment, getting into the fresh air, refreshed me and made me work more efficiently after. So I kind of touched on this really briefly, but for me, I found that going on Instagram, TikTok, any social media is not a good break. It doesn't make me feel refreshed. It doesn't make me feel more focused. It just basically burns time. And that's not what we want out of our breaks. We don't want to burn time. We want to use that time efficiently to get some desired result back. But maybe for you, TikTok is a good break. So I'm just saying, in general, try to know yourself or try different things and find out which breaks are good breaks for you and which breaks don't really help you at all. Maybe for you, walking doesn't do anything for you. So that's something that you wouldn't put in your schedule, because if you did, you're not really getting anything out of it. You're just wasting time. So, okay. And now to our last topic, exams in close proximity to each other. So this is more general. This is something that can probably be applicable no matter what semester you're in. I know for me personally, every year I have prelims that stack up on each other. So one big thing is try to make a long-term planning schedule at the beginning of the semester. So maybe during syllabus week, or right before classes start, you can sit down, go through the syllabus for each of your classes and put into either a physical calendar or a Google Calendar, or whatever works for you, whatever kind of calendar you like to work off of. Put in your prelim dates. Is the final exam schedule released? Maybe put those in too. When do you have to present any papers or projects? What dates would those lie on? You have any, if you're taking a lab, do you have any practicals? When do those fall? Put those all into a long-term planning schedule. And what that allows you to do is at the beginning of the semester, you can sit down, look at your Google Calendar or your physical calendar and say, hey, I know that the week of April 7th is going to be, I have 3 exams. So 2 or 3 months before you have that mega hard crunch time, that you have that. And that allows you the prior, 2 or 3 weeks before April 7th to maybe start chipping away at studying for those tests early. So you're not stuck, the weekend before, cramming everything in and not knowing what to prioritize, what you don't need to do. Helps to alleviate stress. So like I said, just any type of calendar that you like, and just something that can help you quickly identify those crunch times in your semester. So once I kind of just touched on this, but once you identify those crunch times, study for them early. So study, it's way less daunting if you do 1 hour a day for 2 weeks, or 2 hours a day for a week ahead of the exam, than if you are doing 8 hours a day or two before. Not only is it less stressful, but it helps you learn better. Having those, at least for me, I know that breaking up my studying like that helps with my retention of the material, which obviously comes in handy on exam day. So that's just what I just said. And after your exams, reward yourself. After you've finished your last prelim of your crunch time or your last final of the semester, take time for yourself. We just talked about burnout a little bit earlier, right? A really good way to prevent burnout is to reward yourself after you do something really hard. After you worked for a long time, take a break. Did you want to play video games for a night? Okay, go ahead, do that. Can't really hang out with friends right now, but did you want to FaceTime with your friends or do like a socially distanced Zoom dinner? Awesome, do it. Anything that you maybe had to deprive yourself of a little bit so you could study, introduce that to your schedule for a day or two, just to kind of hit that reset button in your head and make you feel more refreshed going forward. Yeah, so you're not a robot. If you try to go to the library after your last prelim, maybe that works for you. I know for me, after I finished like a Gen Chem or an Orgo prelim, being able to go back to my apartment and just watch Netflix or play video games or something along those lines just felt really good. Felt like, a weight was off my shoulders and I could just relax for a night and help me attack the next problem with a good mindset. So that is all for this presentation. I hope that was helpful. I'm going to go back to the first page really quick. My email is jab784@cornell.edu on the bottom left hand of the screen. If you have any questions at all, feel free to reach out to me, and have a good day.